I mean, I'll grow up, get married, or have my own career or whatever, but I'll always be from Hazard. It's a pride to me. It's a pride. It's my family.
They kill one of the vatos from this barrio, then these dudes go to their barrio and kill one of the vatos from their barrio. And then they say that dude they kill Ga's brother, and then he comes to get revenge, but he doesn't kill the vato, they kill his brother, he kills another dude.
Who decides who belongs in a neighborhood and who doesn't? In East Los Angeles, those decisions were not made by City Hall, police departments, or elected officials. They were made on sidewalks, in alleyways, and at the edges of housing projects where boundaries were enforced with reputation, retaliation, and fear. There are places where walking down the wrong street was never a mistake. It was a message. And in one of those places, a name echoed for generations. Big Hazard 13. This is not a story about legends. This is a story about consequences. Welcome to American Gang War Today. We're entering Ramona Gardens, in the heart of Boyle Heights, and breaking down the full history of Big Hazard 13. From its origins in the 1940s to its evolution into one of the most feared and tightly controlled street gangs.
And if you want to be a gangster, go to prison and we'll see how much you are a gangster. This is for you young people. If you like people to tell you what to do, go to prison and you will get a whole lot of that shit. DVI, I went to Soledad, I went to Quinton, I went to Folsom, to Tehachapi, and all I seen was nothing but chaos. I mean, look, we could walk to the store anytime. I mean, you could get paid, you could get a good job. I mean, out here is everything in there is nothing. Here, man, a lot of youngsters, and all different values, they think that walking that walk is something big. You know what? I got news for them, man. It's not all that. Ourselves, we walk that walk, we wanna help out the gente, we wanna help out Raza. So these youngsters right now, man, they go grow up, listen to this tape, listening to us and say, you know what, I wanna become somebody. I wanna become somebody where I can help out the community. I can help out a homeboy.
Big Hazard 13 traces its roots back to the 1940s, long before gang injunctions, federal indictments, or media attention. At that time, Boyle Heights was a working-class Mexican-American community shaped by segregation, overcrowding, and limited opportunity. The gang took its name from Hazard Park, a nearby landmark, and established itself inside the Ramona Gardens housing projects, a dense complex that would eventually become synonymous with both survival and violence. In its earliest years, Big Hazard was not yet the organized force it would later become. It began as neighborhood crews, young men protecting territory, reputation, and identity in a city that offered them very little institutional protection. But geography mattered. Just across the San Bernardino Freeway, rival neighborhoods were forming their own identities. Cam 13, also known as Crazy Ass Mexicans, Barrio Nueva Estrada, Maravilla Hoods, Llama 13. These groups weren't distant rivals. They were neighbors separated by streets, bridges, and railroad tracks. By the late 1940s, Big Hazard was already known throughout East LA. Notorious not because of numbers, but because of how quickly conflicts escalated. In the fall of 1948, Big Hazard held a celebration for one of its members who was preparing to get married. At the time, there was a temporary truce between Big Hazard and Premier Flats, another local gang. Members of the flats were allowed to attend, but truces in East LA were fragile things. During the party, a Flats member disrespected the girlfriend of a Big Hazard member. What followed was immediate. The situation escalated into a fight, and Nicholas Delgado of the Premier Flats was severely beaten by multiple Hazard members. The truce ended that night. About a week later, The Flats sent Pascal Vega into Big Hazard territory. As Vega walked down Chelsea Street, he was confronted. This time, the response was brutal. He was assaulted with fists and bats before being sent back to his neighborhood to report what happened. That report triggered something larger. Premier Flats declared all-out war. Not long after, multiple Flats members crossed into Hazard territory. A large-scale brawl broke out near the railroad tracks below the Soto Street Bridge. Weapons were everywhere. Bats, brass knuckles, improvised tools. Several young men were injured badly enough to require hospitalization. But one incident would change everything. Ralph Belstros, a Big Hazard member, was shot in the back with a .22 rifle by Robert Ortiz of the Premier Flats. Belstros survived, but was left paralyzed from the waist down. Ortiz and 11 others were arrested. That shooting marked a turning point. Up until then, violence had been expected, but this was different. It wasn't just about pride anymore. It was about permanent damage, and the streets took note. By the 1950s, East Los Angeles was saturated with gangs. The Flats, Big Hazard; the Clovers, VO Cypress Street; the Avenue's Little East Side. In 1953, law enforcement estimated Big Hazard had roughly 50 active members, involved in narcotics, robberies, and ongoing territorial conflicts. Around this time, Big Hazard began aligning itself with individuals connected to La M, the Mexican Mafia, specifically through Robert Sales, also known as Robot. This connection would later reshape the gang's internal structure, expectations, and consequences. In 1958, tensions with the Clovers reached a breaking point. Big Hazard members were searching for John Morales, a former Hazard member who had defected to the Clovers and was accused of assisting in theft from Hazard associates. That Sunday night, Hazard members spotted Morales and other Clovers at Downey Playground. Gunfire erupted. Both sides retreated, armed themselves, and returned. What followed was a full shootout. No one was killed, but police arrived quickly. 8 people were arrested, including Morales and 2 Big Hazard members. The message was clear. Defection was not forgiven. In 1960, Big Hazard and the Clovers clashed again, this time at a dance hall on Valley Boulevard and Eastern Avenue. After taunts from Clovers members, a rock was thrown at their car. Later that night, 15 Clover members returned armed with chains, boards, and hatchets. Berto Silva of Big Hazard was critically injured, suffering a fractured skull. Police arrested Robert Lara of the Clovers, but the damage was already done. By now, Big Hazard was no longer just a neighborhood crew. It was a permanent presence. By the early 1960s, the pattern was established. Territory meant survival. Disrespect meant retaliation. And alliances carried long memories. Big Hazard had survived its early wars, but survival came at a cost. And as the decades progressed, the violence would become more organized, more political, and far more lethal. By the time the 1970s faded into the 1980s, Big Hazard 13 was no longer just reacting to threats. The gang had matured into something far more structured, more disciplined, more organized, and far more dangerous. This was the era where street reputation turned into street economics. Ramona Gardens wasn't just a housing project anymore. It was becoming a hub, a place where money, influence, and violence intersected. And Big Hazard sat at the center of it. The rules changed. Where earlier decades revolved around territorial disputes and honor-based retaliation, the 1980s introduced a new priority: control. Control of people, control of movement, and most importantly, control of narcotics. By the early 1980s, law enforcement began identifying Ramona Gardens as one of the most active drug trafficking locations in East Los Angeles. According to police reports, buyers traveled from across Southern California, sometimes from as far as San Diego, to purchase drugs in the projects. Substances commonly cited included PCP, heroin, and marijuana. Big Hazard was deeply embedded in this environment. But it's important to understand something. Big Hazard did not simply sell drugs. They regulated the space. Who could operate? Who had to pay? Who needed permission? This level of regulation required structure. And that structure brought Big Hazard into closer alignment with La M, the Mexican Mafia. Connections to the Mexican Mafia did not offer protection without obligation. Aligning with a prison-based organization meant adopting a new hierarchy, one that extended far beyond Ramona Gardens. Street gangs were expected to pay taxes, follow directives, enforce discipline internally. Failure to comply wasn't treated as a misunderstanding. It was treated as defiance, and defiance carried consequences. This shift created internal tension within Big Hazard. Some members adapted, others resisted. But by the early 1980s, resistance became increasingly dangerous. In 1981, an incident occurred that would send shockwaves through Ramona Gardens and further cement Big Hazard's reputation. Big Hazard member Alfredo Rivera, along with Julio Esquivel and two associates from the Pacas gang, encountered a man named Juan Medina in the El Sereno area. Medina was assaulted, robbed, and seriously injured during the encounter. As the group fled, Medina's cousin witnessed the event and followed them in a pickup truck. What happened next was chaotic. As the driver attempted to evade pursuit, the vehicle entered Ramona Gardens. In the confusion, two Big Hazard members, Julio and Alfredo, were struck by the vehicle. Alfredo survived with serious injuries. Julio Esquivel did not. The aftermath was swift. The driver and another associate were arrested and later convicted. But within the neighborhood, the message was unmistakable. The stakes had risen to a level where even allies were not immune to fatal outcomes. By the mid-1980s, Big Hazard 13 was widely regarded as one of the most feared gangs in East Los Angeles. This fear wasn't rooted in numbers alone. It came from unpredictability. Residents of Ramona Gardens described an environment where outsiders were watched. Disputes escalated quickly. Silence was often safer than cooperation. For many families, daily life meant navigating unspoken rules. Rules enforced not by signage or patrols, but by reputation. Big Hazard's influence extended beyond violence. It shaped how people moved, who spoke, and who stayed quiet. As violence increased, law enforcement pressure followed. Police surveillance intensified. Informants became more active, and cases began stacking. But while arrests occurred, they did little to slow momentum. Leadership positions were quickly filled. Younger members stepped forward, and the cycle continued. This was also the era when internal discipline became stricter. Members suspected of cooperating with law enforcement or disrupting the flow of money were no longer just liabilities. They were threats, and threats were handled accordingly. As the decade closed, Big Hazard appeared stable on the surface. Territory was controlled. Rivals were kept at bay. drug activity continued. But beneath that surface, tensions were building. Law enforcement investigations were expanding beyond street-level cases. Prison politics were influencing neighborhood decisions. And the line between street authority and organizational enforcement was beginning to blur. The 1980s had transformed Big Hazard, but the 1990s would expose the cost of that transformation. Big Hazard entered the 1980s as a powerful street gang. They exited it as something more rigid and more dangerous. Their alliances brought influence. Their control brought money. But both came with expectations that could not be ignored. When the 1990s began, East Los Angeles was already under strain. Years of aggressive policing, rising incarceration, economic pressure, and unresolved gang rivalries had created an environment where violence no longer shocked the community. It exhausted it. For Big Hazard 13, this decade would not be defined by rival gangs alone. It would be defined by law enforcement, internal discipline, and forces far more powerful than the streets of Ramona Gardens. The first major rupture came in the summer of 1991. On August 3, 1991, Arturo Jimenez, a 19-year-old Big Hazard member known as Smokey, was shot and killed by Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies. According to official reports, deputies claimed Jimenez threw a bottle and struck an officer during the encounter. Deputies stated that lethal force was used in response. But in the neighborhood, the story did not end there. The shooting immediately sparked outrage inside Ramona Gardens and across Boyle Heights. Residents questioned the version of events. Protests followed. Tensions between the community and law enforcement intensified. Adding to the controversy, the deputy who fired the fatal shots, Jason Maine, was later linked to an internal group within the sheriff's department, known as the Linwood Vikings, a group that would later be associated with allegations of misconduct and extremist ideology. Despite public pressure, the deputy was never criminally charged, never disciplined, only transferred. For many residents, this confirmed a long-standing belief: accountability did not apply equally. Jimenez's death became more than a shooting. It became a symbol. Just 1 year later, in 1992, a film would bring unexpected attention to Ramona Gardens. Actor Edward James Olmos released his directorial debut, American Me. The film was loosely inspired by the rise of the Mexican Mafia and was partially filmed inside Big Hazard territory. At first, the production appeared to be a point of pride. Local residents and gang members were involved as extras and advisors. But behind the scenes, serious problems were developing. Word reached La M that the film contained inaccuracies, particularly surrounding the origins and structure of the Mexican Mafia. But the deeper issue wasn't just the film, it was who was involved. 3 individuals associated with the film were already under suspicion within prison politics. Ana Lizarraga, a youth counselor who worked with gang intervention programs. She had long been rumored, rightly or wrongly, to be cooperating with law enforcement. In the world of prison politics, rumor alone was dangerous. Manuel Luna, once a respected Big Hazard figure, often described as a godfather-type presence. Over time, substance abuse and loss of standing damaged his reputation. In organizations built on strength and discipline, loss of respect is often unforgivable. Charles Manriquez, Charlie Brown, a Mexican mafia member whose behavior had increasingly embarrassed the organization. He was viewed as unreliable and expendable. By 1992, all three names were circulating inside prison communications, and decisions were made. On March 25, 1992, Charles Manriquez, known as Charlie Brown, was confronted by David Smiley Gallardo. Gallardo, a rising figure connected to the Mexican mafia, carried out the killing. Manriquez died at the scene. Within the system, the message was understood clearly. This was not personal. This was organizational. Less than 2 months later, violence struck again. On May 13, 1992, Jose Gonzalez, known as Joker, a Big Hazard member, drove to the 2400 block of Lancaster Avenue. There, Ana Lizarraga was standing outside with her boyfriend. Gonzalez exited the vehicle and shot her multiple times before fleeing. He was later apprehended and eventually sentenced to life in prison. Inside prison politics, this act elevated Gonzalez's status. Participation in such an act signaled loyalty, and loyalty was rewarded. But outside the system, the community was shaken. A woman known for working with youth intervention programs was dead. The message to anyone cooperating, or perceived to be cooperating, was unmistakable. In 1993, the final individual connected to the American Me controversy was killed. Manuel Luna, once respected, now isolated, was shot while sitting in a parked car inside Ramona Gardens. The weapon used was later tied to David Gallardo. With that, all three names were gone. The American Me controversy was no longer speculation. It was history written in blood. David Gallardo's influence expanded rapidly after these killings. But with influence came scrutiny. Gallardo was described by those who knew him as loud, reckless, obsessed with recognition. In prison organizations, violence alone does not guarantee survival. Political awareness, discretion, and restraint matter just as much. Gallardo lacked those traits. Within a few years, he would be indicted under federal RICO charges, alongside other Mexican mafia members. And not long after arriving at federal prison, Gallardo himself was killed. The same system that elevated him also erased him. By the mid-1990s, Big Hazard was still standing, but deeply altered. Leadership had shifted. Internal trust was fractured. And Ramona Gardens carried the weight of decades of unresolved trauma. The 1990s proved one thing: power gained through fear is never stable. By the early 2010s, Big Hazard 13 was no longer dealing with just rival gangs or local law enforcement. They were facing systemic pressure from every direction. Federal task forces, enhanced sentencing laws, and long-term investigations had reshaped the risk landscape. Actions that once resulted in short county sentences now carried decades, or life. At the same time, Ramona Gardens itself was changing. Redevelopment plans, increased police presence, and outside scrutiny altered how the neighborhood functioned day to day. The streets were tighter. Mistakes carried heavier consequences. And trust, once the backbone of the organization, was fragile. As external pressure intensified, internal conflict began to surface. Disputes over respect, accountability, and alleged cooperation with authorities created deep divisions. Accusations spread quickly in an environment already defined by paranoia. In street culture, being labeled untrustworthy can be as dangerous as facing an external enemy. During this period, internal green lights were rumored, orders that placed members at risk from their own associates. Whether justified or not, these internal fractures weakened cohesion. Instead of a unified structure, Big Hazard increasingly resembled isolated cliques, operating under the same name. Several incidents in the early to mid-2010s drew renewed attention to the neighborhood. Investigators began tying current cases to past unsolved incidents, using witness testimony, phone records, social media activity. Prosecutions during this era were aggressive. Enhancements for gang involvement, prior convictions, and firearm allegations stacked sentences rapidly. For many involved, release dates moved beyond realistic lifespans. These cases sent a clear message to the remaining members on the street. The margin for error was gone. For longtime residents of Ramona Gardens, the impact extended beyond headlines. Families carried generational trauma. Children grew up surrounded by stories of loss. Normal routines were shaped by caution. Many residents were not involved in street life at all, yet lived under the same shadow. As enforcement increased, some residents welcomed the change. Others feared displacement and loss of community identity. What remained consistent was the weight of history. Big Hazard's presence had shaped Ramona Gardens for decades, whether residents wanted that legacy or not. By the late 2010s, Big Hazard 13 was no longer operating at the scale it once had. Key figures were incarcerated, recruitment slowed, visibility dropped. The name still carried weight, but also scrutiny. For younger individuals growing up in the area, affiliation no longer promised protection or status. It promised surveillance, court dates, and long sentences. The cost-benefit equation had fundamentally changed. Gang histories are often told as sequences of conflicts, but the deeper story is about time. Time lost to prison. Time stolen from families. Time that neighborhoods never get back. Big Hazard 13's story is inseparable from Ramona Gardens itself, a place shaped by policy decisions, economic conditions, and cycles of enforcement and neglect. No single event explains its rise or decline. It was the accumulation of choices, pressures, and consequences over generations. This documentary is not an endorsement, nor a celebration. It is a record of how street organizations form, evolve, fracture, and ultimately collapse under sustained pressure. Big Hazard 13 did not disappear overnight. It faded under the weight of its own history. And for Ramona Gardens, the future continues to be written by residents, families, and a community striving to exist beyond its most infamous chapters. This documentary is presented for historical and educational purposes only. Names, events, and outcomes are drawn from public records and reporting. No violence is glorified, encouraged, or endorsed. If you are researching street history, remember this: behind every headline are lives permanently altered.